It's an open secret that David Moyes is on borrowed time. Whether you believe it's 3 games or 5 games or whatever you think it might be, the board have very much come out and said, we have absolute faith in David Moyes, but the results need to improve. Simple as that. Now, I think the commonly accepted period of time is 3 games. Now, either one or two things is true, if that's the case. Either they've not discussed this with David Moyes, or they have discussed this with David Moyes. Whichever one of those two things has happened, David Moyes knows it anyway. There's no way that he's not aware of it. Now, that might be because of his experience in football. He's done loads of interviews in the past where he said a manager is only as good as his last results. This is a pressure job. Managers don't last very long in this job. Those are cliches and just words that he'll peddle out, but he's seen it himself. He's seen it at Manchester United. He's seen it all throughout his career. Sorry, went over to Spain, to Real Sociedad as well. If you don't deliver, you're going to get the boot. It's as simple as that. He set his own standards at West Ham. And in many respects, I think had he have not spent the money that he spent, and had he have not have overachieved in the past couple of seasons, his job might not be under the same threat as it is. But anyway, that's irrelevant. He did get to a European semi-final. He did qualify for Europe back-to-back seasons. Now he finds himself in a situation where he's right above the relegation zone. And that is a dip in form. Over a long period of time as well, it has to be said. So he would have to be completely naive not to know that that's the case and not to know that his job is in a precarious position. And this is where I think it becomes interesting, because if I was the board in this case, I would be looking for a reaction now. It doesn't even have to be the board. Any boss, any manager in any job who's got a staff member or a team that's underperforming, what they want to do is they want to galvanise them. Now, that might be geeing them up. It might be giving them a boot up the backside. But what you want to see is a reaction. I think if I was the board, I'd be looking to see a reaction from David Moyes at the moment. And as I've mentioned on a number of occasions, desire. What I want to see personally, not as a board member, but just as a fan, I want to see, because I'm always interested in how people think, I want to see David Moyes' desperation to keep his job. This is David Moyes' last chance. Not in football. David Moyes would get another job. If he left now, he would still have on his CV that he'd kept West Ham up twice. He would put West Ham in a European semi-final, back-to-back European competition. All that stuff is good stuff, right? However, this would be the last chance for him to work at what I would call a project club. This will be his last opportunity to spend big money. It's now. It really is. There's defining moments in everybody's career. We've spoken about it before with Jesse Lingard. The defining moment of Jesse Lingard's career was actually the 6 months at West Ham. That's when he had his best form. That's when it wasn't going to get any better. That's when he had to make the decision and really try and replicate that. David Moyes is in that position right now. So I would expect him to want to continue that. I would expect David Moyes right now to think, right, this is it. I'm in trouble. I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to do something drastic. Now, whether we believe it's stubbornness or whether it's just a complete and utter self-belief, it appears that not an awful lot has changed. And it was really, it was today. I saw an article today, and I saw an article that Hugh had written today, and it was about David Moyes being in big trouble because players like Paqueta, Declan Rice, Areola, Kera were only returning back to West Ham on the 23rd of December. Now, the premise of the article was, well, David Moyes is in trouble now because what's he going to do? He's in a conundrum. We've got a match on the 26th. Is he going to be able to incorporate them into the team? And basically, you understand the difficulty that puts him in. He's not got enough time to prepare with those players who are really important players. One of them's his best player. One of them's his most expensive player. You get the idea. But I look at it and I think, well, this is a situation completely of David Moyes' own making, which reverts back to what I was saying. Where's the desperation? Where's the reaction? Which is what I'm looking for. Now, what do I think the reaction would be? Well, we already know that Kieran Trippier returned earlier, and as I understand it, I might be wrong, but Kieran Trippier played for Newcastle in the last friendly. I know for a fact there are other players who went out on international duty who are already featuring and are training with their clubs right now. This 23rd of December thing is not a FIFA directive, as I understand it. This is just what we're doing. We're giving those players a break. This is David Moyes' choice. I believe that to be so. If I'm wrong, please do correct me in the comments, but that's what I believe to be the case. Why would you tie one hand behind your back like that? I just don't get it. I really don't. I would understand it, by the way, if we were talking about finalists. McAllister, for instance, he played for Argentina, played very well. Absolutely get it. If Brighton were going to say, well, firstly, Brighton are not in the position that we're in. Brighton have accrued more points in the Premier League, so it's slightly different. It's not a like-for-like example, but if Brighton were to turn around and say, do you know what, mate, come back after Christmas Day or whatever, you totally understand it. That was some final, it was extra time, penalties, all the stuff. You would understand it. They need an extra bit of rest. But, I mean, we're dealing with players. Germany got knocked out early. England got knocked out early. Well, if you call the quarterfinals early. There's just no reason. Areola, okay, maybe. But let's be fair, Areola's not going to start in the team because he's David Moyes' second choice. And he's not done a lot, has he? Let's be perfectly frank about it. He's not basically played. So he's sat on the bench. There's just no reason for this self-imposed restriction on players coming back for training. And David Moyes will complain. He'll complain that he's not been able to have the amount of time on the training pitch. He's got a defensive crisis at the moment. He needs every single training session he can get with, as I would, if it were me, I'd be playing Tilo Kehrer at centre-back and I'd be playing a Gerd at centre-back because I think Dawson's out of form. I don't think you can play Ogbonna. Zuma's injured. That's mine. You might think differently, but that's what I think. If that's the case, they need every training session you can get. Should not be saying, you know what, no, have more rest, have more rest. I find it weird. David Moyes, I look at him at the moment and he's got the look of a man that stood in a burning building. And it's almost like an inferno's engulfing him and he's just stood there. I'm not even sure he's aware that he's in the burning building. But if he is, you get the impression that he stood in that burning building praying for rain rather than getting the hell out or calling the fire brigade. Sorry, it's very tenuous, this analogy, isn't it? But I don't think he appreciates the position that he's in. He's in a precarious position. Brings me back to an interview I listened to on Happy Hour podcast with Jack Mate. And he was speaking to Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson had said that the one thing Moyes is very good at is not talking about relegation. So when Moyes came in on his first and second stints, it wasn't a case that he arrived at a club who were flirting relegation. He said, look, boys, you might go down here. You're going to have to buck your ideas up. Apparently he didn't mention it. And that's fine. That's his style, right? That's good. And it worked. Apparently it's a one game at a time mentality. But I would suggest in this instance, just in terms of David Moyes, even if he doesn't want to convey that messaging to the players, which I understand if that's his style, he certainly better bloody be thinking it himself. Because he may well find that his mantra of one game at a time actually means he's only got 3 games left. And at that point, he needs to start injecting a little bit of urgency into it. He's done an interview today. It's up on the West Ham social media pages. I think it might have been asked by Leica or something, a mobile phone company. I don't fully understand who they are. But they're asking him a series of questions, very relaxed. And I guess you need that. If that's what he wants to convey to the players, that everything's relaxed and everything's fine, then that's okay. But actually, if he wants to be the graceful swan gliding across the lake, then fair enough. But he better make sure he's paddling really fast underneath, and he better make sure he's changing some stuff. So tell you what, if I was the owners now, and I'd be looking at it, I'd be thinking, what he's going to go with Dawson. He's going to play Dawson. He's going to play Souček. He's going to not have changed anything at all. And I think when it comes down to it, if it all goes pear-shaped and the owners sack David Moyes anyway, the owners are going to come in for criticism, and rightly so. Because what they'd have done is they'd have surrendered the perfect opportunity to bring someone new in and give them time to bed down and bed in their new tactics and, just get to know the players and just that bit of breathing space that you normally don't get in the middle of the season. But I guarantee you one thing. If the board had have pulled the trigger, let's say at the end of November, and sacked David Moyes and brought somebody else in, There is no way that whoever they brought in would have created some self-imposed rule that meant they didn't get to see their best players until the 23rd of December when they had a game on the 26th.